Yes, welcome into sportsBIT. Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Monday, February 27th, big show coming up. Deep Dive, Part 1, two-part interview with Steve Cyr, superhost and subject of the book, Whale Hunt in the Desert. Great stories the next 2 days. You want to stick around for that. And we look to stay hot with the play of the day. Rockets and the Pacers on TNT, and also UNC and Virginia with the big game breakdown. As always, bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. Teddy, a bad beat. New Orleans +6 at OKC. Cousins and Anthony Davis went off. They couldn't get any help, and OKC gets the money.
Yeah, Boogie and Brow combined 69 points in that ballgame. 17 rebounds, 7 assists. The rest of the team did absolutely nothing. And New Orleans, second night of back-to-backs, third game in 4. They've been blown out the first 2. And they played well. They led for the first 3 quarters. The fourth quarter was tight. It was a 1-point game with under 3 minutes to play. But the Pelicans didn't score on their final 2 possessions, and Oklahoma City did, equals an 8-point win and cover for the Thunder. One improvement after back-to-back 20-turnover games for the Pelicans. Only 10 turnovers with OKC. That being said, you had a New Orleans ticket in your pocket. That was a bad beat. OKC got the money late.
Yes, USC suddenly on the bubble now. Another Pac-12 meltdown. It was Cal against Oregon last week. Yesterday it was USC, bet up them 3-5 at Arizona State. They lost and they led by 10 with 2:40 left. A huge meltdown.
Yeah, I mean, what do you call it? Is it a bad beat or a bad bet? There was a ton of Trojans money, nothing but USC money, and it was easy to understand why. The Sun Devil starters had played 199 out of a possible 200 minutes versus UCLA on Thursday. But that extra day off made a huge difference. Arizona State was a better team down the stretch, despite the fact that every starter went at least 33 minutes again on Sunday. But you're talking about the big-time meltdown for the Trojans. Now, their 4th straight loss. The first 3, all understandable, against the 3 best teams in the conference. The loss to Arizona State, where you're up 10 with under 3 to play. 1 point over the final 3 minutes and 55 seconds. That's a tough way for USC to lose. Bad beat and bad bet for Trojan supporters.
No bad bets from the Oscars. As usual, all the chalk gets there, but there was a bad beat. Our play, Denzel Washington to get Best Actor. He won at the SAG Awards, and 12 of the last 13 times the SAG Award winner also won the Oscar. But that didn't get done as it went to Casey Affleck. And let's just say, not a nice guy when you see some of the reports coming out with a New York Times article on him as well. He had a poor speech as far as I'm concerned. Thought Denzel would win. Didn't get there. The thing went over 4 hours again. Can you believe that, Teddy? And Halle Berry is 50 years old. Oh, my God.
Can you imagine? Yeah. But, look, I mean, the one thing we got good info. I mean, Isaac Feeder gave us the skinny on what's going on in Hollywood. I really appreciate him taking the time to give it. And even though he gave us Denzel, you know, he gave us a skinny on Casey Affleck, said everyone in Hollywood hates him before all this stuff came out. So let's give Isaac Feeder a ton of credit, but unfortunately, if you bet it, it was all chalk last night at the Oscars in a show that, as usual, went on forever.
Yes, bad bets. Memphis, Denver over, even with the foul fest in the 4th quarter. It was like a college game. Denver was fouling and then laying it in the last minute 10. I couldn't figure that out, but 67 fourth quarter points still didn't have a chance. Oh,
yeah, I never sniffed an over because there was 41 points in the first, and a lot of steam on that over. That got bet 214 up to 217, finished 203. Was, you know, on an under pace throughout. And Memphis games at 217, I'm surprised at how much over money that one in particular took, even with all the scramble points at the end.
This one was bet under. Ton of money on this total. Portland and Toronto bet from 212 to 208. It lands 218.
Yeah, I mean, no Kyle Lowry again for Toronto. The Raptors in the 2 games without Lowry over the weekend, 2-0 straight up, 2-0 against the spread. DeMar DeRozan scores 76 points in 79 minutes. Corey Joseph, 6 assists and only 1 turnover in both games as the starting point guard without Lowry. So the under took the money, and again, you know, you're betting Blazers games under. Best of luck to you. Didn't get there again on Sunday. And, of course, ton of under money, all that money, wrong side.
2-0 for the Spurs in Los Angeles, ATS and straight up. How are they able to do this on the rodeo road trip every single year?
Well, look, I mean, here's the tweet from ESPN Stats and Info. And this is a straight-up record. San Antonio, 88-37 in rodeo road trips since they began in 2002, 2003. That's a 70 winning, 70% wins. And all other games under Greg Popovich are only 69% wins. So actually better on these extended road trips than any other factor. Why? Two things come into mind. First is that when you have an extended road trip with a good team, they come together. Bad teams split apart. Good teams come together. And we've read all kinds of reports over the years. Pop's taking this guy out to dinner. They're all hanging out here. They're all hanging out there. It is a team bonding experience. And the chemistry for San Antonio, as good as any team as it is in the NBA. The other factor, besides just that the team chemistry comes together, is that there's a level of intensity. The Spurs road trip has come in this range of the season where teams are like, all right, it's time to put it together. And San Antonio, in using the road trip to get that it's our time mentality, it's our time to click mentality. The NBA regular season is endless for many of these teams. And with the Spurs' focus during this road trip, they've obviously achieved great results and had great results again this past weekend.
All right, what do you have with Sports Options and Don Best?
Yeah, the big merger. I mean, there's only 2 line services, and the 2 line services just became 1 line service, which is probably not good for competition, but I'm actually excited to see what the new product's going to look like. Sports Options and Don Best, they're both have their varying customer levels. They both have the live odds service. Of course, if you want live odds for free, you can always go to sportsbookreview.com, check out their live odds page. There are plenty of free products out there, but when you need all the sports books listed and the lines moving in real time, there's been 2 options, and here's the quote from the Sports Options team. After nearly a decade of operating independently, we have decided the combined resources and experience of the 2 organizations is the best way to deliver customers the fastest and most accurate information. In addition, this new venture will enable us to further expand our offering to include more sports, leagues, props, and futures. Bottom line, somebody sold out. But for competition, not good. If the 2 technologies merge, and they start to put the best features from Don Best and the best features from Sports Options together, I think they'll end up with a very good product. The only question is, when do the first price increases start to come? Now that the competition has all gone away.
Championship week starts this week. The Atlantic Sun quarterfinals start tonight. So the first conference tournament underway. I think a lot of this is getting blown out of proportion. It is a lousy year on the bubble. Joe Lenardi thinks a record number of teams under 500 in conference play will get in, but looking at this last year, and I saw a lot of articles on ESPN and CBS Sports, there were only 2 at-large bids all of last year. One of them, Wichita State, they put them in a play-in game. So it feels like it's mid-majors, yes, sorry. So, it feels kind of like a rigged game to me when VCU and Wichita and Butler make trips to the Final Four and George Mason. It's not good for business. Only 2 mid-majors got at-large bids last year. So I think it'll be better than last year, even though a lot of teams got screwed. But it's not as bad as what ESPN and I think some other people are making it out to be, because a lot of the so-called Power 5 leagues, the big power teams, are also stinking up the joint as well.
Well, we talk about, why are the mid-major bids down? Okay, let's start with the fact Creighton, Butler, Xavier, they all used to earn at-large bids on behalf of mid-major teams. Now, they're all in the Big East. So, Big East has taken away 3 perennial, Creighton, Butler, Xavier, every year we're getting at-large bids. All right, now they're all doing it for the Big East, which is a major conference. Then, there are 2 powerhouse mid-major conferences that are both way down this year. The A-10, the Atlantic 10. When you think about 2014, the A-10 got bids for VCU with St. Louis and Dayton and GW and UMass, all at-large bids. That's not happening this year. Not even maybe. Of course, St. Joe's won the automatic qualifier that year. And then look at the Mountain West. As recently as 2013, the Mountain West had 5 teams getting in on Selection Sunday. Colorado State, New Mexico, San Diego State, UNLV, Boise. All 5 got bids in 2013. They're a one bid league this year. So with the 2 leagues that have gotten the most mid-major bids, both down this year, it's going to be one of those years where there's not going to be a lot of at-large for the mid-majors unless we see some insanity in the conference tournaments, which, you know what, Pauly? We're probably going to see some of that.
Yep. I think we'll see more than what people think. I think Middle Tennessee State's looking real good. Wichita's a lock. St. Mary's is a lock. This is me talking. Texas Arlington looks good. And Illinois State, if they can get in the Missouri Valley Finals, has an excellent chance to get in as well. But we'll see if they screw them again on Selection Sunday. Up next, big game breakdown. We'll start in the association with the Pacers and the Rockets on sportsBIT. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on sportsBIT, betting insight today. Time for big game breakdown. As always, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Game 2 of a doubleheader on TNT. Pacers take on the Rockets in Houston. Houston 10. 232 the total. Early money on the over. First two games with Lou Williams, 135 points per game, 123 points per 100 possessions. Season leaders, Golden State at 114. It was bombs away Saturday. D'Antoni wants them to shoot at least 50 threes every game. They attempted 58 threes. They scored 142 points. They got to the line over 40 times. This is a lot of fun, Teddy, with this Rockets team now.
They sure are. They're dangerous right now. Look at the bench points. Against New Orleans, the bench scored 79 of 129. The starters only combined for 50, and most of that was Harden. Against Minnesota, the bench another 54 points. So in the last two games, the bench has basically been half of their offensive production. You know, Lou Williams and Eric Gordon came into the post-All-Star break number 1 and number 2 in bench scoring. Williams, of course, with LA and Gordon with Houston. The first two games together, again, look at the numbers. Huge minutes, huge production. 77 points off the bench from Williams and Gordon. And not only can James Harden now focus more on distributing than scoring, he can also get some breathers. They can manage his minutes. Look at the numbers. Pre-break, more than 36 minutes a game. The two games since the All-Star break. And again, short sample size. But James Harden has been able to sit for nearly 16 minutes per game.
Yep. Also, most assists on three-pointers single season. He's number 1 at 287. And per game, 4.8. He's on pace for 392 if he plays all the remaining games. Here was Wiggins' quote after the loss Saturday. Quote, "There's nothing we can do. They run down the court shooting the ball." That's what, I mean, it is. It's bombs away.
But look at that, the graphic with the most assists on three-pointers again. Flash that for just one moment. We just finished the All-Star break. Okay? He just set the record all time for most assists on three-pointers in a season, and we're not even 60 games in yet. You know, and of course LeBron has more assists per game on three-pointers so far this season. Both guys obviously at record-setting pace, but that Wiggins quote stands out. You know, there's nothing we can do, and that may be the truth on some level with Houston. When their offense is clicking, they're going to be one of those nothing you can really do about it type of teams.
Indy opened the break strong after the All-Star break at home. They won 102-92 against Memphis, but it didn't carry over. They lost 113-95 at Miami, so they're 1-7 in their last 8. Miami led by 5 with 8:49 left. George complained about a non-call. He got teed up and tossed on the referee. He said, "It's not like I said something derogatory to him. I said it's a bleep foul." He was a puppet with Spoelstra in his ear, and he called it. Now we'll see if this brings the Pacers together, but they've been in a big funk here, and the not a good opponent to play when you can't defend either.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and it's an interesting scenario here for Indiana. You know, this is a team that's been in a funk. You know, as you mentioned, 1-7 in their last 8, struggling on the defensive end, and getting bombed in Miami the other night after George got ejected. So you say to yourself, given the fact that their best player got tossed, their team leader got tossed, there's a lot of eyeballs on Paul George in the last couple of weeks. You know, he's been under the microscope a little bit with all the trade deadline nonsense. So you say to yourself, here's Indiana, they're facing all these distractions, they're coming off a real bad game. Is this a chip on your shoulder type of Pacers game tonight? Because if it is, maybe they're live here. If they're funked, man, Houston will uptown funk you up in a minute. Man, that team is on a roll right now. I'll tell you what, I am not stepping in front of the Rockets. It'd be Houston or pass for me, but I'm interested to see what Indiana brings this evening. If they come with a chip on their shoulder, it might be a competitive game.
Yeah, revenge spot for the Rockets too, and I expect it to go over the total as well. Game number 2. Live odds, sportsbookreview.com, 4 o'clock Pacific, ESPN. They do it again. They just played Carolina at Virginia this time. UNC 2.5 on the road, 133 the total. They just played February 18th. Carolina was laying 6. It wasn't that close. It was 65-41. UNC beat them up on the boards, 40-23. Virginia was 15 of 54 and 2 of 20 from 3. Their offense was running into a wall all night.
Yeah, or all afternoon. If you watch the first game, it's going to be very hard to make a play on Virginia for the second game because it wasn't a competitive game. The Tar Heels were a lot better on both ends of the court. Now, Virginia did finally get a win, their first win in 3 weeks, beating NC State on Saturday, 70-55. You ask yourself, was that a turnaround for the Cavs after that losing streak, or was it a one-off? Because, number one, NC State, obviously a problematic team, and they were coming off, finally getting off the schneid and getting a win after their own extended losing streak, flat as a pancake. And number two, the freshman, Kyle Guy. He played 35 minutes, scored 19 points, hit 5 of 7 three-pointers. Prior to the game, we're talking about a guy that was averaging 16 minutes and 5.7 points in ACC games. He had 16 three-pointers for the entirety of the ACC season. He had 5 this past weekend. Against North Carolina in the first game, he had 13 minutes, 0 points, 0 of 5 shooting, 0 rebounds, 0 steals, and 0 assists. And now, all of a sudden, a couple weeks later, he's filling up the box score. So we have to ask ourselves, does Kyle Guy bring it again versus North Carolina the way he did against NC State? If he didn't, it may well be a one-off type of performance for the Cavs in that last outing.
Might be the best team in the country right now, and as the season goes on, the number one rebounding team in the nation is only getting better since losing to Duke. They're 4-0 straight up and a 4-0 ATS, plus 65 on the boards in the 85-67 win at Pitt Saturday. 23 offensive rebounds. Pitt only had 17 on defense. UNC getting 42.6% of their offensive rebounds. No other team in the nation is at 40%. Wild one. Wild stat, Teddy.
I mean, just say that again. They won at Pittsburgh on Saturday, all right? North Carolina missed 40 shots. When they missed a shot, they got 23 offensive rebounds, and Pitt got 17 defensive rebounds. You understand? I mean, you can't. It's hard to lose games when you're getting that many offensive rebounds, that many second chance possibilities. And Virginia, they're tough. They're not a dominant rebounding team. And as you mentioned, that first meeting, Tar Heels all over the glass with a plus 17 rebounding margin. Any similar type margin tonight, and North Carolina has the potential to run away with this one.
And we'll get back to this game coming up with the play of the day. Up next, part one, Steve Cyr, superhost and subject of the book Whale Hunt in the Desert. You won't want to miss this interview coming up. Part one today, part two tomorrow, coming up on sportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
All right, 5 great minutes with Steve Cyr, superhost and subject of the book Whale Hunt in the Desert. Follow him on Twitter at Steve Cyr Vegas, CYR, and SteveCyr.com, CYR. Read the book about him a couple of years, well, a long time ago, actually. Proud to call him a friend. I couldn't put it down after 2 days. It's an incredible read. I think the one time I interviewed you on the air, the first time, we talked for over an hour. We obviously can't do that here. But this is going to be a fun interview. Can you tell people what it is you do? Explain your job, please.
The Reader's Digest version is I'm an agent, like a Jerry Maguire, in between the customer and the casino. I negotiate, like I'm Larry Flint's host. That's not a secret. So I negotiate, can Larry split aces 4 times on a blackjack game? Can he double down after a split? If he loses $1 million and pays in 30 days, does he give a 15% discount? If he has an average bet of at least $45,000 for 4 hours, does he get another $50,000 in free promotional chips after 4 hours of play? Yes. Does his wife get a $10,000 shopping spree? Yes, because we need to keep her busy so Larry can play. So I negotiate and I try to keep the customer happy and I try to keep the casino happy. I'm that broker in between, and I earn a commission based on the casino action.
Do you root for players to lose?
It depends on the jurisdiction. That's a fair question. In Vegas, in Clark County, I actually hope they win, Pauly, because I earn on theoretical. So if you win, you bet more, you play longer. When I take them to the Atlantis or on a cruise line or to California casino, to be honest, I hope they lose because I get 10% of the loss. So if they win, I get 0.
How did you get into this, and how many players do you rep?
This is my 30th year. I started a long time at age 22 at Caesar's Palace, so I was a regular just casino host on the floor. I mean, I originally started Pauly in dice. If you bought in for $300, I introduced myself. Hi, I'm Steve Cyr, and on Saturday night I was to invite them back for Sunday brunch. And now, of course, 30 years later, I went independent in '99, got my gaming license. And, I don't have thousands of players. I have about there's high rollers and whales. A high roller is someone that'll come for a weekend and risk 25,000, we'll say, to 100,000. A whale, believe it or not, it's not necessarily $1 million players. There's guys that'll risk 100,000 to a few million. You know, if I have a guy from California, he comes every couple of weeks with 100 grand. That's a whale, because at the end of the year, you got a shot at $1 million or so. I have about 70 guys in the 100,000 and up range. It might not sound like a lot, but there's only 52 weeks in a year. That's a lot of ballers for sure. And so, and I'm one-stop shopping for them. You know, they're freezing their ass off in New York. I send them down to the Bahamas, Norwegian Cruise Line. They want to chase tits and ass, come to Vegas and let's go to the Cosmo or the Hard Rock. You want to be mellow, let's go to the Barona in San Diego, and the kids can go to SeaWorld and you can play golf and gamble. So where they want to gamble, I try to put their trips together. I'm taking a guy in 2 weeks over to the Hippodrome in London, a big casino over there. So wherever they go, I try to set the deal up for them to gamble.
What's the strangest thing you've done to get a player?
You know, I can't say that over the air. You know, to get a player, it's just persistence. You know, Larry, I can talk about him because he doesn't care. I sent him a basket of cookies every Monday for almost 8 months. And I never, you know, and I got kicked out of his office twice. I remember once he called me late Monday and was like, hey, where's my cookies? You know, and I was like, damn it, Larry, you know, but I finally got him based on the deal. And he's a really good guy. But it's just persistence. A couple times I went over to the MGM once and I bought into a dice game for a couple $1,000 because I knew the whale was on the other end. And it was a $100 minimum dice game. So with odds and two numbers, my whole $2,000 was on the layout in like 5 minutes. And thank God I won a little. And I won a little for him. And he came over and shook my hand and tried to give me a $1,000 chip. I took it, of course, and I was like, hey, his name was Mr. F. We'll say, I go, Mr. F, I'm Steve Cyr. I just came over here to steal you away, and I got him off the game. I'm barred now from going into the MGM, but it was worth it.
How many contacts do you have, and do you rely on that, hey, so-and-so's in town, he's staying here, and maybe in the past or even now that you're trying to get a big-time whale or a high roller? You
mean moles for lack of, you know, limo drivers, VIP, countless. I mean, you know, information is key. I need to know who's in those villas, who's in the penthouses, who, you know, people when they come in on the private planes. So that's key. But, you know, I've been doing it so long now, Pauly. A lot of them call me a big player. He gambles at more than one place, and it's cool. He wants the big deal, you know, and a lot of times I'll just go over and have a beer with a guy. I don't even get him to gamble. It's just about that relationship. And I'm lucky because I'm independent that I can, you know, I'm not stuck at Caesars or stuck at Bellagio or stuck at the Mirage. I can go wherever I want, so it's a big advantage.
Steve Cyr, our guest, top host in the country, subject of the book Whale Hunt in the Desert. Steve Cyr Vegas on Twitter, CYR. What's that speech you give? How do you start your speech at Cornell University? Well,
I'm really lucky. The book's been really cool, and it is required reading at Cornell and NYU. And usually, you know, I guess to get their attention, I hope they don't think I'm being an asshole, but I usually start by saying, you know, I'm a 2.3 from UNLV, and you just spent 200 grand on 4 years of education at Cornell to get the same degree I have. And to be honest, no one ever gives a shit that you're a 4.0 from Cornell. I work in a job, Pauly, where the Braves make more than the Chief. You know, I mean, the girl I date now, I mean, she's going to save 80 to 100 grand this summer being a cocktail waitress at rehab. Does she care that you're a 4.0 from Cornell? No. So you're going to go spend 200 grand of daddy's money. And now what? You make 50, 60 grand a year as assistant hotel manager? You know, I mean, that's just the reality of the business, you know, and then I'm nice to them and I say, hey, your degree's important. It will work out, you know, but it is, you know, come on, the strippers are making more than the people that graduate from college right now.
Oh, there's nothing like it. I mean, how about how the club scene has exploded, Steve? And these guys come in and drop 100,000 on alcohol.
It's not a fad. I mean, when I first started, the only casinos were outside, or the casinos didn't have nightclubs. There was called the Shark Club and Botany's. This is in the late 80s, 90s. And now, I mean, light changed everything. And then, I mean, these DJs make millions of dollars. And I tell you, I mean, Pauly, even 20 years ago, my department was the king because 80% of every dollar was from the casino. Now it's not that way. Now it's a third casino, maybe. It's a third hotel and conventions and a third nightlife. You know, I mean, Yeah, it's, you're renting space. We sell Sky vodka that you can get at Albertsons for $10 for $450. You're renting space.
Yes.
And they do it. And they wait in line. And DJ Aoki's there. And, it's unbelievable. The minimum booth. I was at Omnia. I like that club over at Caesars. And the minimum booth was $2,600. And they have like 80 booths. Up to 30,000 minimum. If you and I go and have 2 Diet Cokes, it doesn't matter. We got to spend over $2,000. Plus the waitress gets a 20% auto grad. So that chick's making $400 a booth. So it's crazy. It's crazy, and it's not going away. And it's just the club scene. And I wish I was more involved with the club scene because it's definitely amazing. You can't lose there. In the casino we can get beat up. We get a lot of days where we get beat up. But, man, not in the club scene. You're renting space. I mean, an average rehab when I was there, when I was at the Hard Rock, like a non-Memorial Day, just an average Sunday, we do like $600,000 in sales for a pool party. It's $100 for a dude to walk in, $50 for a girl, just to walk in, and then a Red Bull vodka's $12. I know. And look, these aren't rich people. These are kids that save. I think they're all going to be broke by the time they're 30. But they're maxing out their cards and they're going to the pool party. It's the culture we live in. Thank God for them. I need degenerates. So that's how I make a living.
Great job by Steve Cyr. You won't want to miss part 2 tomorrow. He gets into these high roller demands and what they ask for, tickets, crazy demands, and what they want as well. That'll be coming up. And what do you think about the Raiders to Las Vegas and possible McGregor-Mayweather fight as well? Money time, play of the day. Where are we going, Teddy?
Let's go to the Virginia-North Carolina game. And if you saw the first meeting, it's hard to make a case for the Cavs in the second meeting. Game number 515, North Carolina, -2.5, even with the early money on the Tar Heels. I continue to think that they are the value team in this equation. Not even Virginia's pack line defense can slow down Justin Jackson right now. He's taking his game to a Final Four level. Tar Heels, -2.5. That's our play of the day.
All right, here we go. Getting close to March. Championship week right around the corner. Going to be a fun month here on SportsBIT. Tell your friends. We'll see you tomorrow on Betting Night SportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.